We need to talk about the iced coffee hour. I need a favor. Graham and Jack were nice enough to interview myself and get the one rental at a time story. That video, that interview, that 2-hour discussion was published yesterday. I'm hoping all of my one rental at a time fans will go over to the Iced Coffee Hour YouTube channel and frankly take a listen, leave a thumbs up, and please leave a comment. One of the things that Graham, Stefan, and Jack have clearly told me is the more comments, the more interactions, the better our chances of getting in the YouTube algorithm. And I want the message from the Iced Coffee Hour to be heard by as many people as possible. We talked about a lot of stuff that's important to beginners. We talked about the early days. We talked about 80% loss. We talked about the bubble years. We talked about the transition. We talked about W-2, retirement, mistakes. We talked about living in Vegas. Again, it was a 2-hour conversation that frankly, I was nervous to have. Both Graham and Jack are obviously amazing. I've had a chance to interact with both of them a couple of times now, but sitting in that studio under the big lights with all the cameras can be intimidating. So I would ask my audience, the one rental at a time fans, do me a favor, go to the Iced Coffee Hour and check it out. Leave a comment, thumbs up. Let Graham and Jack know that you appreciate the discussion. If you look at the Iced Coffee Hour, they bring on huge names. And it is my fear that little old me, one rental at a time, is going to disappoint. It's not going to have the numbers that some of the others do. And that's unfortunate because I believe the message of getting on the property ladder, own assets, get to 4, it's always hard, do the work, buy box, is what the masses need to hear. So again, I ask, please go over there, check it out, leave a comment, thumbs up, whatever you're comfortable doing. And hopefully the video could get, I don't know, 100,000 views. A lot of their big views get 500 or 600. A lot of their smaller views get 30 or 40,000. So I'm hoping that we can get over 100,000. I just want to put it out there. So again, let me know what you think. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about some earnings that are coming out this week. We talked about the economic data. We got today after the close, we have Oracle. Tomorrow we've got Petco, Dave & Buster's, and GameStop. And Thursday we've got Kroger and Adobe. I'm going to be looking at all of these. I'm going to be looking at Dave & Buster. Dave & Buster is the one I'll be looking at of this list because I want to know what's going on with the consumer and experience-based spending. We already know that there's a drop in discretionary spending. We've heard that from Home Depot and Lowe's and Nordstrom and Macy's and others. But what about experiences? So again, Dave & Buster is the most important earnings for me this week because, hey, are we still shopping till we're dropping on services or not? So that's what I'll be looking at. Got a very interesting post from Lance Lambert at Resi Club that I think it is important to talk about. Lance has done an amazing job of highlighting housing permits because if you don't know, housing permits is a leading indicator for final units. It turns out that total housing permits are down 6.3% year on year. But as everything housing, that is not the full story because housing is really broken down into 2 buckets. There is what's called residential, which according to this report is single-family homes through fourplexes. So yes, folks, a fourplex would be considered residential in this report. Single-family homes through fourplexes permits are down 1.3% year on year, which I actually think is kind of interesting because if you remember last year, I believe mortgage rates were about 7.5%. Today, mortgage rates are, let's call it 6.5 between friends. So a full 100 basis points lower. So again, overall housing permits are down 6.3%, but single families, the largest bucket, is down 1.3. What does that mean? Well, it means that, frankly, Ken McElroy is right again. Ken McElroy has been identifying something that won't hit us for probably another 12 to 18 months, maybe 18 to 24 months, and that is units. Multifamily 5+ housing permits is down 16.6%. Yes, folks, we are undoubtedly bringing new inventory on the market today at a high rate, but that will be over. That wave will recede, and it will recede in a big way. So my thoughts, my worries, what happens to inflation in 12 to 18 months? Do we go back and repeat what we are doing? So again, something certainly to watch, something I am watching, and something we'll talk about more here in a minute. Want to give a shout out to Rick Palacios Jr., a analyst at John Burns Real Estate Consulting. They do a monthly survey that comes out before the press picks it up. He said in his new home survey that new home sales rose in August from July. Now, this is not typical. August is typically a slow month. So how can that be? Well, if you watch this channel, you know the answer. Falling rates and juicy, that is Rick's word, not mine, Rick's word, juicy buy downs. He did highlight that we still have price backdrops are still soft in Texas and Florida. Folks, Texas and Florida in a world of hurt. I would actually say Florida and Texas if we were going to rank them. Lance Lambert has clearly shown us that there are plenty of cities in Florida, strike that, Florida, that are in trouble. I want to highlight a video or a conversation that comes out, I think, tomorrow. It's about buying a 12-unit building, seller financing. One of the things that I love to do now that we have our growing school community is speak to school members. The caveat is these school discussions have to be recorded so we can put them on YouTube. So I want to highlight this discussion because, again, we talk about how to prepare offers for a 12-unit building. Just to give you some parameters, the seller wants 2.7. The buyer, my student, wants 2 million. So we talked about how to structure a couple of different seller finance options. In fact, we talked about 6. We talked about developing 6 seller finance offers. The key being the buyer would be comfortable with all 6. In some of the examples, we were giving the seller what they wanted and on price, and some of them they were giving us what we wanted. Again, you will get that video. I believe it comes out. It might come out today. Actually, you know what? I think it comes out today at noon. So look forward to that. I want to shout out Kimberly for being brave and reaching out saying, hey, can you help me? So hopefully Kimberly appreciated that discussion. I think it is very clear that the rate cutting cycle has begun. Now that that is out there and happening in September, a week away, 10 days away, I find myself asking a question. Could we be on the cusp of what John Burns did in the early 80s? Folks, if you go back and look at inflation in the early 80s, or better yet, if you take the time to go to my website, onerentalatatime.com, and download the 54-year spreadsheet, you will see what I mean. Inflation, I think, peaked at something like, this is from memory, 9%. Arthur Burns went on a rate-cutting cycle because he thought he beat it, only to spark the second coming of inflation, aka inflation 2.0, at which point Arthur Burns lost his job. Paul Volcker was brought in, and Paul Volcker put us into the worst recession since the Great Depression. The 1981-82 recession was nasty, it was deep, it was dark, and it was ugly. So when I sit here and worry about inflation 2.0, it is with great reflection on what happened last time. When I look at inflation, I will admit we need to break it down into 2 components. I think this is missed by the masses. There is cost of living inflation and asset inflation. If you don't know, asset inflation is not captured in CPI, PPI, or PCE. Asset inflation typically goes to the folks that own assets, obviously single-family homes, stocks, things of that nature. On the other side of that is cost of living. Does it get more expensive for rent, gas, food, insurance, entertainment? You know the drill. So as I sit here and look at this rate cutting cycle, which again will be starting next Wednesday, will likely lead to 100 basis points in 2024. And who knows, maybe a total of 200 by the summer of next year. I will be watching asset prices and cost of living. I don't know where this goes, but I'm concerned. So we will keep doing that. We will also have to look at the wealth effect. The wealth effect is real. Could we have flat consumer or cost of living inflation that's led with asset inflation? We absolutely could. You could have assets increase and have flat cost of living. But what happens if rates are down? We already know that homeowners are sitting on something like $18 trillion of equity. I think it's actually $18 trillion of tappable equity, which means there's another 20% there that's not tappable. At what rate do consumers get stupid? That's what I'm thinking. Let's just be honest. At what interest rate does mom and dad go back and do a cash out refi of their home to go shopping, to go splurge, to go repeat the stupid consumer behavior of 06, 07? I lived through it. I saw it. I saw people use their homes as ATMs. I do not know if we will do that again, but it is one of those fears that I have out there for 25 and 26. Things to watch. I do want to highlight one more thing that I think is being not talked about enough in the media. I suspect if the Fed lowers rates by 25 basis points next Wednesday, that mortgage rates will shock people and go higher. I'll say that again. I think if the Fed cuts 25 basis points, mortgage rates will not go down, they will go up. Now, how can that be? Well, again, mortgage rates are not directly tied to Fed funds, but they can be a leading indicator. And I think what's happening right now is the market, like always, is getting ahead of itself. And that we are assuming that the Fed will do 50. It is possible. And honestly, I do not have an opinion. As of this morning, I thought about it for 20 minutes, and I'm not ready to make a call. I think I'm going to wait for Wednesday when CPI comes out. It's really weird because I always have an opinion. I do not know 25 or 50 at this point. So we'll think about that. I want to respond to a comment on the iced coffee hour. Again, one of the things I'm trying to do myself to help the iced coffee hour podcast or video go further is I'm trying to reply to all the comments. So one of the things I want to do, there was a comment this morning on the iced coffee hour that basically said, hey, making $200,000 20 years ago made it easy for you to get out of the rat race. And if you look at my response, it is what I believe and what I know. My response was, hey, go play the cash flow game from Robert Kiyosaki. Play it twice. Play it once as a doctor and once as a janitor. And you tell me who is easier to get out of the rat race. Folks, I don't know who needs to hear this, but apparently people do. If your income is $50,000 and your expenses are $35,000, I have great news for you. You can get out of the rat race faster than a doctor. If you're a doctor making $200,000 a year and your expenses are $180,000 or $190,000, it is going to be really hard for you to get out of the rat race. If you want to go one step further, I will bet $1,000 against anyone out there. If we play the cash flow game 10 times, I will be the janitor and you be the doctor, and I will whoop your ass 8 out of 10 times. It is wrong. It is unintelligent to say, hey, a high income earner, it's easier to get out of the rat race. That is not how it works, folks. It is absolutely not how it works. When you have those expenses or you have that income, you have expenses that consume a lot of that, keeping up with the Joneses and things of that nature. So again, I say it with great respect that if you're out there and you're making 60 grand a year and you're spending 45, you can get out of the rat race before a doctor. It's just how it works. You may not believe it, but that doesn't make it not true. So hopefully you heard that. What else is going on? I'm worried about the yen carry trade. Remember the yen carry trade? The Japanese raised the interest rates, 10 basis points, sent the world into a tizzy. I wonder if the yen carry trade was put back on when the Japanese said they're no longer raising rates. I have a fear, it's just a fear, that if the Fed goes big, goes large with a 50 basis point cut, we could see the yen carry trade 2.0. Because again, the yen carry trade was essentially borrow low, invest at a higher rate. But what people don't really understand is the real turbocharge was the currency valuation. So if the yen is flat and the U.S. And the Fed cuts rate by 50 basis points, the dollar will weaken, which will hurt the carry trade. So it is something I am thinking about. Right now, the current odds for the market are 75 basis point or 75% for 25 and a 25% for 50. Again, these are potential rate cuts coming. If you don't know, or if you haven't heard, Palantir and Dell were both added to the S&P 500. Congratulations to those that own Palantir and or Dell. They've been added to the S&P 500. And then finally, folks, I want to talk about school. It's a particular community that I think you all have to be a part of. I think you need to upgrade your community, your friends. I think you need to be around other real estate investors, speaking the same language, networking, getting to know each other, really establishing new connections. If you're going to join the school community, I think you have a couple of options. One, if you want to come in for a single month, because again, these are not annual subscriptions, they are $20 a month. You could come in for the first month and consume all of the great education. There's a 10-week boot camp. There's a 6-hour masterclass. There's some econ. There's just all kinds of stuff that if you wanted to come in and just consume, you can get thousands of dollars of value for $20 if that's what you want to do and that's who you are. Number two, if you want to come in and learn but also be held accountable, congratulations. We have accountability groups on Wednesday and Sunday. Shout out Frank and Jared. If you want to come in and even add more value, something that is super special for the group is we have millionaire conversations where you can come in and interact directly and get your questions answered from our millionaire conversations. Got two more for you. The number 4, and what I hope most of you do is you come in and become active participants in the community. You introduce yourself. You respond to questions or comments that are in your domain. The community, the posts, the interactions is what will make the community grow and sticky and valuable. And then lastly, it is my hope that you establish new friendships. If you can get on the journey to financial freedom that you know is going to take 10 years, but you can get 2 or 3 new friends that you go on this journey, it will be a lot more fun. It won't feel as slow or drudgery. Those are the things that I'm hoping to bring in our school community. I will keep talking about it. We'll keep doing it. We just did an hour discussion yesterday. Folks, one more time. Shout out Graham and Jack, the iced coffee hour. I am concerned, given that I am a small fish compared to all of the monster names that they talk to, that the video will underperform. I think that will be a great disservice. I think the value that we talked about in that is what people need to hear. Get focused, live below your means, get a buy box, get to 4, all the stuff that we talk about here. But folks, that stuff's not sexy. That stuff's not sexy. I want to reward the iced coffee hour for taking a gamble. They did not have to have that discussion. They did not have to post the video, but they did. So please go to the iced coffee hour, check out the podcast, leave a comment, leave a couple comments. I will continue to reply to the comments to do my part. So Graham, Jack, thank you very much. Please go watch the Iced Coffee Hour. Later.